Hello, and welcome to Every Tiny Victory. My name is Crystal, and I'm a 40-something-year-old woman living in Houston, Texas. Today, I wanted to start a Q&A video series on the medication that I take to help with my type 2 diabetes management and encourage a little bit of weight loss along the way. It's called Tirzepatide, and the brand name that it's known as, or it goes by, is Mounjaro. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you're new here, I want to give you just a little bit of background about myself and or the reason why I started my channel, Every Tiny Victory. In December of 2023, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I had received a couple of years warnings on my yearly blood work that I was moving into that pre-diabetes range. At the time, I didn't understand what I could do to make changes other than that, general diet and exercise, but I didn't understand really what the A1C meant and how the things that I'm doing on a daily basis impact that number and what it indicates for the rest of my body. So I've been, having a steep learning curve over the past year and a half now, and just wanted to share what I'm learning, what I'm doing, all different kinds of things, just to be able to see my progress as I go along, but also, share what I'm learning with my family, friends, and anybody else there who wants to listen. So the um, Mounjaro actually came to play for me in January of 2024. That's when I started taking it. It did take about, I think, 6 to 8 weeks for my insurance to approve me to get on the medication. And over the course of 2024, I lost 35 pounds. In January of 2025, I decided to document this process, and that's how my channel came to be. And I am, just trying to share information with people out there who may be considering Mounjaro as part of their diabetes management plan or for some other reason. And so I'll talk about that in the videos to come. All right, so let's get started with the Q&A. Now, every question that I'm going to be answering today is something that I wanted to know, something that I was curious about or just needed some facts. And so I've done some research on like the NIH website, the ADA website, the Eli Lilly website, which is the drug manufacturer. And it's also the answers will also be informed by my own experience. I'm not a doctor, so this is not medical advice. I'm just sharing with you my experience. All right, so let's get started with question one. What exactly is Mounjaro? To put it simply, Mounjaro is an injectable medication that is used to manage type 2 diabetes. It helps to regulate blood sugar levels by stimulating a naturally occurring hormone called GLP-1, and that hormone is released when we eat food. So, um, I guess to kind of go back a little bit, the GLP-1 medications are not new. They've been around for 20 or 30 years, and they've been used to help diabetics manage their disease. The thing that's different about Manjaro is that it has that 1-2 punch. It's helping to um, regulate the blood sugar, and it affects the digestive process. So those two things in combination help to kind of fix the blood sugar issues and also helps people lose weight, which is a great thing, an amazing thing if you are a diabetic that struggles with obesity or being overweight. Now, the second question is, how does Mounjaro help with the blood sugar regulation and with weight loss? So, first, it stimulates the body to produce insulin whenever it's needed, and then it helps the body to get rid of the excess sugar when it's not needed. So essentially, this is the Mounjaro medication is treating insulin resistance. It's helping your body to get back onto the normal processes it should be doing when you consume sugar or foods high in carbohydrates and starches that will eventually turn into sugar if not used. Now, remember, I mentioned the GLP-1 hormone that is found in our digestive process. So when Mounjaro is working on the blood sugar, right, it's helping to correct that insulin resistance. It is also affecting your digestive process by slowing things down. So essentially, it allows your food to kind of stay in your intestines longer. It helps you feel fuller, and it decreases your cravings and your appetite, so that essentially you're eating less food, and the result of that is losing some weight. So that's the 1-2 punch. It's fixing or helping your body fix that insulin resistance so that it can regulate your blood sugar the way it's supposed to, and then also it's slowing down digestion so that you are less prone to overeat and eat foods that are not going to be good for your body. Now, the third question is Mounjaro FDA approved for weight loss? And the answer is no. Mounjaro is approved for diabetes management. Now, there is a medication out there that is literally the exact same thing. It's a GLP-1 receptor agonist. It's called Zepbound. And that one is specifically for weight loss. Now, this is important because they're literally doing the same thing, helping to regulate blood sugar and also can impact weight loss. Um, your insurance may or may not cover Mounjaro or Zepbound, depending on your diagnosis and what you've been prescribed. So it's important for you, I would say, but maybe before you have that conversation with your doctor about, maybe I want to try getting on Mounjaro or Zepbound, see what your insurance plan covers. That is probably going to make an impact on what you pay for that medication, whether it's something to help treat type 2 diabetes, or if it's something that you're wanting to use to help with weight management. That may have an impact on what you pay at the pharmacy. So those are some things that you need to consider. The next question is, how is Mounjaro administered? Now, since Mounjaro is an injectable medication, it's going to be injected into your fatty tissue once a week. And the instructions are that you will inject it in your stomach area, so around your belly button and in that, larger belly area, or the back of your arm, which is typically, at least for me, soft, squishy tissue, or your thighs, so the tops of your thighs. And I have found that, um, certain areas may be more, I don't want to say painful, but they can sting a little bit more than others. So I prefer to do mine in the belly. That's where I have, the least sensitivity, at least to the shot there. The medication itself is either going to be in a pre-loaded, like a pre-filled injectable pen. Kind of looks like an EpiPen. You basically take a cap off, and then you put it in the place where you're going to administer the shot. You turn a dial and you press a button, and you'll hear essentially 2 clicks, and that's how you know the medication has been injected into your body. The other way it may be prescribed and given to you is in a vial, and then you are basically extracting the medication from that vial in a needle. So you are pulling that medication out of the vial and then sticking yourself on the back of your arm, like I said, your belly or the top of your thighs. I'm pretty clumsy and don't think that I would be very exact with the vial and needle situation. So I prefer the pen, and that's how the medication has been given to me since I've been on it. There are some people that prefer the vial and needle, though, because it allows them to do what is called micro doses. They're taking essentially the same amount of the medication, but splitting it in half and taking it twice a week instead of once a week. So there are certain reasons that somebody might do that, and we'll kind of cover those a little bit later on. But you have to do what is more comfortable for you and also what your insurance plan allows. My insurance plan just automatically gives it to me in the preloaded pens. So the next question is, how do I store Mounjaro? Mounjaro needs to be stored in the refrigerator so that it maintains a certain cool temperature. When you're ready to take the medication, you need to like, I would recommend that you take the pen, or fill the needle if you're using a needle and vial, and then allow it to come up to temperature. So let it sit out for a couple of minutes. I've found that that helps to reduce the sting of the medication. So when you finally do the jab, if it's cold, I found that it stings a little bit more than when it's room temperature. I can barely feel anything. um, Now, because it needs to be stored in the refrigerator, that's something to keep in mind when you are either traveling. You need to have an approved um, cold container that can carry that medication, or even in times of like natural disasters. For example, I live in Houston, and so we get hurricanes between June 1st through November 1st. So hurricane season is something that I need to be concerned about when I have a full box of my medication. I need to just go ahead and be prepared to have a cooler with dry ice or something just in case we lose power. If you have a generator or whatever, maybe it's not a concern for you, but those are some things that you need to think about since this medication needs to be stored cold. And I think it goes without saying, but as you know, I'm going to say it anyway, just for all the people out there. If you have children in your home, or children with access to your refrigerator where you're going to keep this medication, you need to be extra careful with how it's stored. Kids are curious and they will climb on things and get into stuff that they shouldn't be. And it's just important that they don't get access to the medication, because it could have, it could be dangerous for anybody that it's not prescribed for. So keep it out of reach of children. Now, the next question is, what are the typical starting doses for Mounjaro? Now, treatment often begins with a low dose, with the lowest dose, which is a 2.5 milligram, and then you gradually increase that dose over time. So like I said, it comes in increments of 2.5 milligrams. So it goes 2.5, 5.0, 7.5, 10, 12.5, and then 15, which is the highest dose. Now, when Mounjaro first hit the market, the recommended treatment plan was that you start on the 2.5 milligram and you take that for 4 weeks, and then the next time that you refill your prescription, they send you up to the 5 milligram dose. You do that for 4 weeks, and then the next time you're on 7.5, all the way up until you get to 15, and then you would stay on that until until you reach whatever metrics you and your doctor were trying to get you to, or there was some other reason to bring you down, to a different level. Now, since the medication has been out for several years now, that recommendation has changed, and doctors are now recommending that you stay on the lowest dose you can, um, until you don't feel the effects of the medication anymore. So for the blood sugar, like, you may notice that your glucose response is becoming more erratic. So it's less level. And I notice that. So I have a continuous glucose monitor that is, checking my blood sugar every minute of the day. And so I notice, when it's a little closer to the end of the week and I'm almost getting ready for my next shot, my glucose sensitivity, I guess, is a lot higher. So it takes a little bit longer for my blood sugar to come back to normal than it did earlier in the week. And that is, essentially the lessening effect of the medication. Another thing that you might notice is that your appetite comes roaring back, like you start having cravings and you're hungry all the time. That's the positive side effect of the medication wearing off. So that would also indicate that you need to move up a level. The next question is, how long does it take to see results with Mounjaro? Now, for the blood sugar, it's going to take a little while for you to start seeing some positive effects of your blood sugar coming down. It takes about 4 weeks or so for the medication to build up in your bloodstream, and then you may notice, like I said, on my glucose monitor, that my levels start remaining a little bit more stable rather than the crazy up and downs whenever I eat, certain foods. Now, hopefully, you're not eating, a bunch of fried foods and a bunch of sugary sweet foods. So you shouldn't get those crazy spikes and dips anyway. But I've noticed that, on the medication, my blood sugar remains constant, pretty much, for 5 out of the 7 days of the week. Um, if if you're wanting to see positive, like, I guess, weight loss, that may take a little bit longer for some, and it could be almost instant for others. For me personally, I started seeing weight loss within the first couple of weeks, and it was only a couple of pounds, but I have been a serial dieter my entire life, and I can, you know, I tell this story um, a lot, but my sister and I, for example, we did this, a diet one time, and it was basically like, eating green salads and different things, so for like a period of 2 or 3 days, literally saw nothing change on the scale or nothing. And I know it wasn't a super long time, but my sister lost like 5 pounds or something just in those short few days with those, couple of dietary changes. And I literally saw no effect. So when I started losing, a couple of pounds, every couple of weeks, I was ecstatic. Um, Over the course of 2024, I averaged about like 3 pounds a month. And so at the end of the year, I had lost 35, 36 pounds. And that's, huge for me. Um, the, there are other people that, report, weight loss of like 5 pounds, 8 pounds in the first couple of weeks of their first, dose. And that's great. That's great for them. And I wish sometimes that it happened that quickly for me, but I have other concerns about losing weight so quickly. And the one, skin, having sagging skin, but it also puts a lot of stress on your heart and other things when you lose weight really rapidly. So I didn't want to go the super quick way. Um, so that wasn't a concern for me. I was fine with seeing a couple of pounds a month. But for you, that's just something that I would say, you just have to be aware. For some people, they can see those, weight changes really quickly. For others, it takes a little bit longer, and it's going to be smaller amounts of weight. So it's hard to say now, but everybody's a little bit different. You'll start to notice, a pattern for you, like what's normal for you. So I won't expect to see, 10 pounds of weight loss in a month or anything like that, because that's not been my experience so far. All right. So the next question is, can Mounjaro be used alongside other diabetes medications? And yes, it can be. So Mounjaro, like I said, is used to help people manage their type 2 diabetes. But I do want to say, and like I said, I'm not a doctor, but from the reading and things that I've done, it's important that you work with your doctor if you're taking insulin or you're on other diabetes medications, because essentially Mounjaro is working to regulate your blood sugar so that you don't see those really high highs and really low lows. It's trying to keep you at a stable sugar level, right? Your glucose levels. Um, in the same way, insulin is doing that as well. So when you eat a food that is high in carbs, or it's very processed, maybe very fatty or very sugary, your blood sugar will spike, and the insulin essentially is you're sending the insulin into your bloodstream to artificially lower that glucose. So when you have two things that are working to lower the glucose, you can end up in a situation where you have what is called hypoglycemia. Hypo means low, Um, so that means that your blood sugar will drop too low, which is also dangerous. So diabetes essentially is when you have hyperglycemia. That means it's way too high. But there is a situation where you can have blood sugar that is way too low. So you do have to be careful, and there is a certain, mix of medication that you need to, find, and you and your doctor will work to figure out what that is. But it may be trial and error for a little while until you figure out the right levels for both medications or whatever medications you're on. The next question is Mounjaro suitable for people without diabetes? So I've kind of answered this already. Mounjaro is primarily for people with type 2 diabetes, and it's used to manage that condition. But it has shown a lot of promise in a number of other medical conditions. Um, and your doctor, may prescribe it for other reasons, and that does happen sometimes. Take, for example, birth control. Birth control is used to prevent pregnancy, but for people with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, that may be prescribed to ensure that a menstruating person actually does have a cycle every month, so that can they lessen the risk of developing endometriosis later on. So even though they may not be using it to prevent pregnancy, they're being prescribed the medication, birth control, for a different reason, right? So just like, kind of like that, I guess, Mounjaro could be used for a number of different things in the future. Currently, it's for people with type 2 diabetes. I've been reading, though, a lot of different studies, and I've been on, some, I guess, um, discussion boards with endocrine specialists and obesity specialists and diabetes specialists that have reported, good results in their patients with like PCOS and some neurological disorders, even cardiovascular diseases. And so there's a lot of things that are still being discovered about the medication. And so it could have more positive uses in the future. So that is reason for hope. Now, the last question that I wanted to tackle for today is what lifestyle changes should accompany Mounjaro use? Now, I've kind of talked about, some of these changes that I'm trying to make in some of my other videos. So if you haven't checked those out yet, I invite you to, take a look at any of the videos that I have before. But what I'm trying to do essentially is change my diet. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm doing, and then changing my habits. So I guess those are the two things that I really am trying to impact. So the diet is huge because diabetes essentially you can worsen the condition. You can I guess cause more damage to your body quicker if you aren't adjusting the food that you're putting in your body. So like I said, I love sweets. I love all things sweets. Even my husband jokes that I am part elf because I like sugar, I like sweets, I like the 7 food groups: candy corn, syrup, what are the other things? So I have a propensity for having tons of sweets in my diet. And so if I don't change those things, then my blood sugar is always going to be at an elevated level, which is causing my pancreas to always be producing insulin, which is going to be always, impacting all these other systems in my body. When your body is running like that all the time, eventually it will get fatigued and your organs will start to fail. And so one of the things that I've learned is that if you can impact your health with just a couple of dietary changes. I wish I had known how simple it was to do that, a couple of years ago. Then I wish I had known that sooner, because It's wild just how a couple of different swaps can impact your blood sugar on the daily. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of, at least for the start, for maybe the first 6 months to a year or something, get yourself a glucose monitor if your health plan allows it. If you have the means to do that, talk to your doctor, see if there are any programs with the manufacturer to get you the glucose monitor, even for a short period of time, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you can do, because the education that this glucose monitor has brought me, just in being able to see real time how one food affects my body versus another food affects my body, has been mind blowing. So, just a couple of swaps, for meals that I'm already cooking for my family. So, right now that's Michael and my niece America. Um, just a couple of swaps can, make the food not any less, appetizing or satisfying, but can greatly impact my body's glucose response. And I just think, like, the less time that I can keep my sugar elevated, the less my organs are working or overworking, right? Which means that I'm going to have a longer lifespan of those organs, over time, into hopefully into my old age. So I didn't realize that it could be that simple as making a couple of changes in your diet. So balanced diet, that's something that I'm learning how to do with the help of a dietitian, and of course experimenting on myself by checking my glucose monitor after I eat, foods, and literally keeping a daily food log. So one of the other things that I would recommend that I have been incorporating myself has been, changing habits, and that starts with regular exercise. Now, I mentioned before, there were days when I wouldn't get but 1,000 steps in a day, going from home to the office and back, and that's it. And the way that exercise, just movement of my body, has helped me to, one, feel a little bit more confident, but it has built up, like, my lung capacity. I don't feel as winded when I'm doing things. I can choose to take the stairs or take the elevator. And there, that has been a sore subject for me for a long time, because I also have rheumatoid arthritis, which was recently confirmed in some blood tests in my last blood work. And I had been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis when I was 19, and I had just been ignoring it, again, like all the other things in my life. But it hurts sometimes to move your body, and it definitely hurts when you're carrying extra weight on your frame. So any pound that I can lose is going to help lessen the stress on my joints, and will greatly decrease my pain, the daily pain that I live with. So, exercising is helping for a number of different things, but increasing movement and, things like that, it's super important. Let alone the other benefits that I've seen by getting outside and seeing the sun, like letting the light actually hit my face, has been so amazing on my mood. I can already tell. Um, the other things that I would say is, like, impacting my sleep. I've been trying to get to sleep at a certain time, every evening, and waking up at a certain time in the morning. Just allowing my body to have that time to rest and recover has been super important. The the other thing that I will mention is, stress management. A lot of us have very demanding jobs, are providers of care for either children or other adults in our lives, and just other things going on that, where we have a lot of places to divide our attention to, and we often put ourselves last. So I definitely understand that, but I want to just encourage you to make yourself a priority. Because what eventually happens, right, is that our body, just like with the blood sugar, our body runs at this really high level of stress, whether it's external factors like a job, or money's tight, or a dispute with your neighbor, whatever it may be, right? But then we have that coupled with the mistreatment that we're doing to our body. If you're like me, feeding it all the wrong things, not drinking enough water, not sleeping, enough hours each night, your body is eventually is just running under such high stress that it starts to poop out. Your organs will fail. The processes that your body is designed to do will no longer function the way they're supposed to. And so I think that when you receive a wake up call like I did, it brings to mind all these different things that you could do better. And now is the perfect time to do that. So I will say that one other thing that you should do is to work on your muscle strength. And, one of the ways that you can do that is with strength training. And I haven't gotten there yet. I'm still trying to build a base for just basic activity. But I know that that's something that I need to start working on, whether that's resistance training with, the rubber bands, those big rubber bands that people use to work out, or if it's Pilates, or if it's just doing exercise with my own body weight or whatever it may be. It's important not just on this medication, that is one of the specific things that you need to do when you're on Mounjaro, but to increase your health over time as you age. It's important to have a store of muscle mass that support your bones and keep your metabolism going and all different kinds of things. So lifestyle changes definitely you need to do, with Mounjaro to see the best results with your blood sugar and with your weight loss. I hope this video was helpful to you. I've like I said, come up with a list of a couple of questions that I'm going to be doing in a different series for the next couple of days, and hopefully you'll tune in for the next one. With that, my name is Crystal. This is Every Tiny Victory, and I appreciate you spending time with me today. I love you. Bye.